Hola mi gente, ¿cómo están el día de hoy? Espero que estén de la very good. I've been learning Spanish for over 3 years, and I live in a Spanish-speaking country where I use the language every single day. Tengo amigos hispanohablantes y diría que hablo bastante bien. Hasta tengo un acento chilango, o sea, de DF, o sea, de CDMX, o sea, de la Ciudad de México. Me siento cómodo hablando en español, resolviendo problemas, explicando cosas y, bueno, pensando en el idioma. Pero, ¿qué pasaría si alguien me diera un puñetazo en la cabeza y se me olvidara todo mi español? How would I do it all over again? Honestly, I wouldn't change my actual approach all that much. I got pretty lucky that I found the Refold method before I'd really put that much time into it. But I would have started a lot earlier. However, that's in the past and I'm talking about now. So I'll cover what I would do with all of my years of experience right now in this video, so stick around. If you're new to Refold or have never heard of us, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here. This video is going to have kind of a lot of information. So if you want a nice simple PDF guide that walks you through the 6 biggest differences between our method and others, check the link in the description below. That'll also sign you up for our completely free email list that has tons of tips and tricks for getting into language learning for real. A la gente, diles. Bueno, no quiere. And anyway, getting back to my Spanish, I would start with the fundamentals of the language since I would know nothing. Common words, basic sentence patterns, and the cognates between English and Spanish because there are a lot of them. And since a lot of us at Refold are very passionate Spanish learners, we have great resources for all of these that are linked below in the description. The ES1K, the Spanish Grammar Primer, and the Cognate Guide. The next thing I use is probably the biggest change, Dreaming Spanish. When I was learning, I didn't know about Dreaming Spanish, but it truly is one of the best resources for Spanish learners at kind of any level. They have hundreds of great videos that are very easy and understandable and quite engaging. I've talked about this at length in the Refold Spanish Discord server, but we feel that a lot of their recommendations are not as helpful as they could be. Most specifically, I would be using subtitles on their videos to help me focus on things and pick out the words that I know to reinforce them in my mind. We find that learners that use audio and text early on, so subtitles, have a much easier and faster time picking up on words and understanding the basics of the language. And another thing that I do kind of as early as possible is watch a lot of TV. I did this when I first started really getting into Spanish learning, and I think it's the most powerful thing that I did. I watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of TV shows with subtitles, looking up words, going slowly, and it really helped me to build my understanding of natural spoken Spanish, along with the more analytical text version of the language. I would absolutely do this again. I think that TV shows are sometimes an underutilized resource for language learning. Being able to follow along with characters and a storyline also makes the learning feel a lot more real. So I would highly recommend that you do this as well. I originally used Migaku to watch TV shows, but I haven't used their service in several years and it has gotten a major update since then. So I can't exactly sign off on it, but I assume it's probably fine. Right now I use ASB Player and VocabSieve, which is probably what I'd continue to use since I'm already familiar with them. Another thing for just choosing content in general, but specifically TV shows, is that I'd stick to one accent. I pretty heavily focus on Mexican Spanish when learning the first time round, and it really helped me to focus on something specific and not get distracted by all of the other things in Spanish. There's plenty of time to learn all of the cool accents, dialects, and jargon in the future, but focus on one for now and give yourself all of the opportunities to understand. Once I'd learned about 1,000 words from those tools, so about 2 to 3 months give or take, I would move on to sentence mining, and that's where you save new words that you come across from those TV shows. However, I wouldn't go overboard. I'd put a hard limit at maybe 2,000 to 3,000 mined words, just not to overload myself. You don't need that many Anki cards. It's really easy to get sucked into wanting to learn more and more words, but the reality is that you only need to know a few thousand words really well, and then you can learn the rest a lot more naturally. Plus, that's what we use to speak in day-to-day conversation. To really solidify those words that I'm learning, I would also start using YouTube. YouTube is great because it uses a lot more natural and colloquial language from people that are just speaking. And plus, there's a ton of content in Spanish. I'd be sure to use the Refold crowdsourced document that has hundreds of YouTube channel recommendations and a bunch of other things as well, because it's one of the best collections of resources I've ever come across. Definitely check it out for any suggestions, refold.link/Spanish. I'd also start reading a lot too, maybe even only after a month or two of learning. This is something that I did the first time as well, but I could do it a lot better. I talked about this in my recent How to Read More video. I would use reading tools, I'd do lots of lookups, I'd go nice and slow, and I'd use books that I'm familiar with audiobooks. This would allow me to get a much better understanding of the little words and the structure of the official Spanish language. A lot of people worry about reading early ruining their accent, but we haven't seen a lot of evidence that this is more than just correlation rather than causation. Reading early doesn't seem to cause bad accents, a lot of other things do. And reading early seems to help a lot with understanding the language more analytically and making faster progress. Reading at first is very slow, but you'll speed up a lot very quickly. Another thing that I do differently is crosstalk. I did basically no crosstalk when I was learning Spanish because I didn't really know it was a thing. But there are like 100 million Spanish natives learning English, and so it'd be very easy to find somebody to crosstalk with. That means they'd speak in Spanish and I'd speak in English. I'd focus on finding people to make long-term friendships and connections with, because that would make the learning a lot more interesting and engaging. Getting a couple hundred hours of crosstalk also helps your conversation skills because you're a lot better at the receptive part of that. It's also a great way to learn more random vocabulary that might not come up in media or YouTube videos, which is kind of a lot of words when you think about it. Another thing that I wouldn't change is the way that I approach speaking and writing. At the very beginning of my learning, I was trying to speak and write a good amount, but I found it to be really frustrating, slow, and not very helpful. So I basically dropped it for over a year. And I found that was not only the best way to spend my time, but also a lot easier to focus on. So again, I wouldn't really try to speak or use Spanish for at least the whole year into my learning. However, I would change what I did when I started to speak and use the language. My last approach was a little bit lackluster, and I kind of just waited for my Spanish to fix itself rather than actively going and finding my issues and fixing them, which would have helped me a lot. I would focus on saving my frequent mistakes and try not to make them again and again. I would also challenge myself to do thought-intensive writing, which challenged me to put the language down in a more formal way to really solidify my thoughts. This is something that I'm still not amazing at in Spanish, and also my orthography, but I know that I could have done better. Actually, could do better because I'm still learning. It's not like I've finished the language. And the thing that I think that really puts these skills to the test is making and producing and recording YouTube videos in the language. I'd actually still like to do this because you have to write, edit, work on, reflect on, record, edit in video, add other things on top of it, add subtitles, all these different things go into making a video that are very language intensive. So hopefully I have some time this year or next to really start getting into longer form, more researched videos in Spanish. We'll see how that goes. The last thing I do is make sure that I join the Refold Spanish Discord community. There isn't a better group of learners that are more helpful and knowledgeable about the language and how to learn it. If you have any questions or just want some friends for along the way, definitely check it out. There's natives and learners alike. refold.link/join-Spanish. So that's how I'd learn Spanish if I had to do it all over again. Well, the condensed version for a YouTube video. I've actually made videos on a lot of these topics already, so be sure to check the description for links to specific techniques if you want more information. Also, be sure to get the 6 Language Learning Secrets PDF for free down in the description today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like and make sure to subscribe, and leave a comment down below with how you're going to learn Spanish. I'd love to see more Spanish learners out there. That's all that I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and happy immersing.
I'm here to drop some knowledge, listen up with your ears. I got a language learning method, gonna make it crystal clear. It's called Refold, the game changer, gonna blow your mind. Immerse yourself in media, fluency you will find. Refold.